authenticity with emotional intelligence and how important that really, really, truly is. Because when you start straying and you're going too high on your emotions, that's when you're really kind of going into that inauthentic zone. And well, that's why we don't make decisions when we're emotionally distraught.
Welcome to the My Future Business Show, where we get you in front of your best audience and keep you there. Not only are we interviewing the biggest names in business to help you become even more successful, we're inviting you to book your spot on the show to help you grow your business. So at the end of the call, make sure you fill in the interview application form at myfuturebusiness.com/interviews. Welcome back to the My Future Business Show. My name is Rick. I'm your host, and if this is your first time joining us on the show, welcome. You're in for a treat, as I know that there is a lot of great content going to be shared on this show today. We're especially focused on, I guess men's health, men's mental status, and living their best, truest, authentic self. And we're going to be doing that today in the matter of no short time with the wonderful Corey Hilton. Welcome to the show, Corey.
Hey, Rick, thanks so much for having me on. I truly appreciate it.
Oh, look, it's absolutely my pleasure, Corey. Now, just for context, I'm going to be sharing with the audience that you're an Amazon best-selling author, you're a certified authenticity coach, and we're going to be talking about your book, Take It Off, and how you can use your own experiences to actually help men who are over 30 overcome lack, unworthiness, and emotional disconnection. Now, that's a lot to get through in a relatively short amount of time, but before we do that, Corey, it's I guess customary for us to learn a little bit about you. So where are you calling in from today?
Well, I'm actually calling in from Kelowna, British Columbia, Canada, actually. So I'm a little ways away from you right now, but feels like we're right next to right next to each other. So
it's a stone's throw away.
Right, exactly.
Now, I always love to talk a little bit about the things you love to do and the pets that you love. And earlier today, as I mentioned off the call, I was checking out your Instagram feed, and there was a couple of things that I saw there that I absolutely adored, which is one was your pet. Could you tell us a bit about him?
I have a one-of-a-kind boxer by the name of Sancho, and he's actually my second boxer dog that I've had in my life. My first one, she passed away last year of old age, basically. So I got this new guy, and he takes up a lot of my time, but he's a little bit more work, but at the same time, it's very gratifying. I love animals, always have, and just basically they bring so much into your life and give you so much and only expect so little in return. So I spend a lot of time with him, and it helps me really when I get out into nature, because I really try my best to get into nature as much as possible. It's my way of resetting. Like so many other people out there, it's a good way to be able to reset from all the other stuff going on in your life. So
the fact is that with dogs, we have 3 Rottweilers ourselves, and they sit and listen to you, don't they? They know when you're not when you're not happy, all that sort of thing.
Yes, totally. They have a sixth sense without a doubt. And yeah, I mean, I've definitely noticed with him in comparison to my female, he's very much more, I guess you could say, affectionate in a lot of ways, but also very much more stubborn in other ways. So not one is the same. Just like all of us, my friend, we all have our own tendencies as humans as well. And that's kind of where I dig into in a lot of ways when it comes to my coaching. Is just kind of like I talk about how we are all unique in that way, and we have to really kind of try to find that needle in a haystack, so to speak. So yeah, dogs are just as they're all different, and so are humans, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to take a deep dive into all of those aspects of your life and what you're doing as an authenticity coach momentarily. But prior to that, I know that you love getting out into nature, and again on your Instagram feed, which I love to look at, just a glimpse of your life. Where were you were taking those wonderful shots of the nature that you were in?
Oh man, well the great thing around here is I use an app on my phone called All Trails, and it's actually, I don't know if that's international or not, but it is a great way to be able to find all these great trails around British Columbia, because British Columbia has just such amazing scenery to start with. And so I'm kind of blessed to have lakes and mountains and everything right in my backyard. So and the great thing is when I have that ability to follow it, having a GPS on there, at least I kind of know where I'm going, so I'm not going to be lost out there in the middle of nowhere. So but yeah, it definitely tends to be that I get out there so far sometimes, Rick, that I get some great shots, and it's just it's one of those things where you just kind of have to, in my eyes, like I think sometimes we get so busy that we don't slow down enough. And it's like, when you drive to work, for example, you don't even remember your drive to work. There's stuff that you pass by, you don't even notice it. But when I'm out hiking, I just notice little things a lot. So I catch a lot of that stuff and document it as much as I possibly can. And it's sort of a side hobby that I enjoy doing, for sure.
Absolutely. Now, tell us a little bit about your other hobbies. Do you like watching movies, or do you like music? What's your thing?
Yeah, my thing's really music. I've been on a bit of a hunger for getting back to seeing some live concerts
Oh
here and
yeah,
there. And obviously, I think we've all been kind of starving for that. Anybody that loves seeing live events, and I've been one that's been addicted to that since I was about 10 years old. To be
yeah,
completely
me
honest, it
too.
was the first time I ever saw a show, and it's always been kind of the hard rock stuff, a little bit of the. Occasionally I'll get into some of the other stuff, but I always have really gravitated towards rock, hard rock, and yeah, I'm excited to be going to a couple shows here in the next little while. So it's
I know one
pretty
that's coming
cool.
up, and I'm jealous as it gets. You're going to go and check out Slipknot, aren't you?
Yeah, yeah, I saw Corey Taylor a few years back actually with Stone Sour, and he was really good. So, I've rubbed shoulders with so many superstars that I don't
Yeah.
really look at status that much anymore.
No, no,
I don't really get that fanboy really,
no,
but
no,
it's just I can truly appreciate some good talent,
no. They're
and I'm
good.
really excited. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
and
really good.
Sid, they're all playing a part, aren't they? They're all playing a role in
Oh
that
yeah,
band. It's amazing.
yeah, it's crazy. It's quite the circus to watch live for sure.
So tell us a little bit, Corey. I'm going to unwind with you and go back a few
Yeah,
steps in life.
sure.
Where did you grow up, and what can you remember about growing up?
Oh man, my past history is very unique in a lot of ways. I grew up here in British Columbia, Canada,
Mm,
on the coast though, right on a municipality just outside of Vancouver,
mm,
and I was actually adopted. I was born back in 1970, so I was adopted by my grandparents, which now isn't that common of a thing, so to
mm.
speak, but back then it was pretty
Oh
common.
yeah.
And so I had this really interesting childhood where I actually kind of really till the age of 12, believe it or not, I always believed that my aunts and uncles were all actually my brothers and sisters because I thought that I was literally born by my grandparents. I didn't even understand any of that
Yeah,
stuff. So
yeah.
I actually kind of had that revealed to me when I was just able to kind of comprehend what that was kind of all about as a kid. So I really looked up to my grandfather in a lot of ways. He was a bridge builder, and he really worked really hard for his money. And he really actually, in a lot of ways, I guess you could kind of say he kind of worked harder than worked smarter at times. But that was only really because he was limited with his tools in the first place, right? I think we all only know what we know.
Mm.
But as a kid, I looked up to him as Superman, and he was very emotionally disconnected, unfortunately, due to having some struggles in his own personal life, but also being in the military through World War II. And,
Mm.
you're programmed, right?
Yeah,
Like you're
yeah.
literally programmed to be a robot that way. So it did have a bit of a chain reaction down throughout my family and
Mm.
including myself, right? Where I couldn't really convey emotions the way that a lot of other people could when they maybe heard the loves yous and the honeys and sweeties in my house. I didn't hear a lot of that.
No.
The love was more represented in other ways, right?
Yep,
So
yep.
I was born in kind of just a middle class, normal, household that I guess you could say what is normal, but I had a mom and a dad, and I'm very, very blessed to have had that, especially where there's so many other people in this world that don't have that.
Oh
So
yes.
I don't look at it as a total negative, and I don't play any blame game, especially now. I used to play a little bit of that blame game and try to look at my struggles and say, oh well, that was because of something else, and you can go to the root of it sometimes, try to figure out why you did things like you did in your life based off your family background, but I can't blame them.
No.
That's not not where I roll anymore.
No.
That's kind of where I was before I started this whole authenticity
Yeah,
trip, I
yeah.
guess you could
And
say.
and part of this is why I wanted to talk to you. Now, in terms of your truth, when it
Mhm.
was revealed to you, and might I add, I have a similar truth in terms
Mm.
of not knowing who my parents were, thinking that they were who they were for 25 years before I was told the truth. Now, so
Wow.
there you go. There's a reveal for you. I want to
There
know
you
how
go.
you responded when you were told the truth.
Oh, that's a good one, Rick. It's very interesting because, okay, first and foremost, when I was told the truth, I was told by my actual biological mother.
Oh,
Okay, so that was interesting because obviously having my mother, my aunt, my uncles, all these people that were older than me, a generation up, were kind of in my life, but I
mm.
just didn't really have them labeled as what they were supposed to be labeled as. So when she told me, I'm your mother, I said, oh no, you're my
Yeah,
sister, and I just
yeah,
didn't believe her,
yeah.
right? Like,
Wow.
and then eventually when I figured that part out, it was actually right in the same conversation. She actually said to me, she said, well, if you ever want to actually meet your biological father, I can actually have that set up. And I thought, okay. And I reluctantly said yes at 12 years old because,
Oh,
and I was really reluctant with it because I kind of had a fulfilled
you were
lifestyle.
good.
I was already pretty good. Like I didn't have a really, I did I guess you could say I was very spoiled in some ways
Yeah,
as
yeah.
an only child, so to speak, at that time. So I didn't really have a desire to meet him per se, but I went ahead and said, yeah, I will. And then actually what ended up happening was he was supposed to show up to pick me up to meet
Mm.
me, and he didn't show up that day. And
Oh.
so when he stood me up, I didn't realize actually the subconscious, I guess you could say little t trauma that came with that territory. And
Mm.
actually there's an element of it that I had to dig deep into even this last couple of years to understand why I had even issues with relationships at times where I was really traumatized, or I should say like really upset, more upset than I should have been sometimes by a breakup.
Yep.
And I actually kind of figured that out, that it was a little bit of a sense of abandonment that actually went as far
Hmm.
back as that based on even that moment, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's just interesting. I mean, as you know, I mean, therapy wise, a lot of people, they say, oh, yeah, you have to dig back into your childhood. Well, you know what?
You
You kind of
do.
do.
You kind of do.
You know, you really
No,
do.
well, look,
So,
Corey, I really do appreciate you opening the door to that part of your life. I think it's great for context and understanding your
oh, you're welcome.
journey. Thank you very much. Now, I'd love to know, given that I was also raised by and large by my grandparents, it's a very similar story, very similar,
That's cool.
that I've found that they gave me some incredibly powerful, valuable, almost old school values to live by. Did
Yes.
you find that?
Absolutely, man. Oh, you know, I guess all I can say is that going, you know, I don't want to dig too deep, go
Mm-hmm.
too far ahead right
Mm-hmm.
now, but I will say that some of the most pivotal times that I had in my life, especially when I was at rock bottom at certain times, and we all have our top of the world and rock bottom moments, I suppose, but mine was pretty dramatic at
Yeah, yeah.
a couple of those moments. And if it wasn't for the words of my grandfather, who, you know, I look back on and had those long walks at times just out there with him as a kid, and him turning around and telling me the, you know, what was moral and what was integral and all those things that old school, I guess you could say, the generation from before really instilled in a lot of
Mm-hmm.
kids at that time. I really took those and listened to him. And so as an example, Rick, like my grandfather, I'll even call him my dad, he used to say to me, oh, Corey, you know, you got to really be careful as far as who you surround yourself with. So if you end up at a party, for example, and somebody's doing the wrong thing, all you need to do is be there, and that thing gets busted, and now you're part of it. So he
Yeah,
always kind of threw that out at me, like you're really the product of your environment. So be careful, like who you choose to associate yourself with.
absolutely.
And that was something that I didn't necessarily stick to all my life. Like there's times when I put myself in positions where I shouldn't have, but when I was really in a bad position, like really bad, or if I was like halfway across the continent and my family wasn't around anymore and I was really struggling and alone and really going through some hard stuff, I always kind of heard the words of him ringing in my head sometimes. And I think there's certain times in my life where I do believe that without him even knowing, he's passed away now, but without him even knowing, he actually saved my life a couple of times. For
Oh
sure he did.
wow, that's
Yeah,
incredible.
he
Thank
really
you
did.
again. Now I heard you mention earlier that you know he was your superhero. I often
Mhm.
ask this question: what do you think your superpower is?
I would say actually that my superpower has a lot to do with storytelling, because I really do enjoy that side of it, of being a writer, of course, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not even just so much storytelling. I think that being a person that has been emotionally disconnected in the past so much, I feel that actually my superpower now has been kind of hidden behind my biggest fear, and that was having emotional connection. So now I really feel like I'm really powerful when I am connecting with someone, and I'm not looking up at them or looking down at them. I'm looking them right in the eyes. I don't
Yep.
put people on a pedestal like I used to anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so having that ability to do that, that gives me the goosebumps when I say or do something that I know is actionable, that someone can take to better their lives. Like
Yep.
that gives me that gratification. So as simple as that is kind of a superpower for me. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I speak in public, or if I'm, yeah, I've done it before in my former career, or when I'm even just in a small room and I'm talking to a few people and I know that they're resonating with what I'm saying, that's that thing that makes me want to get up every day, right? Like that's the thing that really makes me want to get up out of bed and
You
really
do
make
it.
an impact, right?
So, do
Yeah,
you get
yeah.
up early? What's a day look like for you?
You know what? It's kind of random. I'm not going to deny it. I do enjoy it every once in a while, kind of getting my rest, especially depending on how much the animals are waking me up through the night. But I mean, you know, I do try to get up. I'm not the 5 a.m.er, but I'm usually about the 7:30 a.m.er to be completely straightforward about it. But it's not to me so much about the time that I'm getting up. It's more so about the time that I'm utilizing and making the minutes count in my day, right? Regardless. So I mean, I know that a lot of influencers and public speakers say, oh, you should be up at, you know, the crack of dawn and everything else. Yeah, but if I'm up at the crack of dawn, I'm really not making those minutes count like I am when I get up at 7:30. So I just kind of read my body with that and go with what works for me. You know, and that's just being authentic.
No, I love the story. I wonder, I know that you love looking after yourself. Tell us a little bit about your routine, what you do in your day.
Well, I'll give you this, Rick. I actually used to be in a very much, I guess you could say, comparison game, whether it was my career or when it came down to myself, when it came to looking after myself. So what I mean by that is when I was in my early 20s, I was trying to go pro in bodybuilding. So I really, really focused on nothing but the exterior. Like I didn't really take care of a lot of my interior issues, didn't even address them because I was so focused on getting away with that. So what I mean by that is that back then I would push myself to the extreme that most people don't in this world. I was actually one of the 1% that went through the entire diet phase, the whole bulking phase, got up on a stage, did a show, you know, the whole 9 yards, right? So that's a different level of discipline than most people can understand. It's kind of that freak to be a freak nature. So, you know, out trying to outdo the next guy, whatever it takes sort of thing. So I was so, I guess you could say, like, enveloped in that for so long that it was very hard to actually like let go of that and be okay with progression. But what I found is when I got into my late 40s, actually it took me a while, but when I finally got there, I figured it out where it was like I wasn't ever going to be in the bodybuilding realm like I was before, and quite frankly I didn't really want to be because I hurt so much. Like it was a lot of pain, right? I found that when I started practicing hot yoga, I started actually deprogramming certain parts of my body that used to actually like be, I guess you could say, stripping away some of that, the injuries and the scar tissue and all that stuff that I was dealing with. By stretching it out, I was able to really, really resolve a lot of those problems instead of having to be in the chiropractor's office every couple of weeks, right? That's my realm now, where I'm very much more focused on not just the exterior, but it's the exterior progression with the interior, right? Like, got to have that sanctuary to reset. It's just important to me now.
Fantastic. 100%. That's great feedback. I you know, clearly you've started to take care of your mind, body, and spirit all as one, and I'd love to obviously get into that. But I want to know now. You led down a path that took you to become a dancer. Now, you know more about this than I do. I've checked out all of the information that I could, but could you share how this came about and why you made this decision?
So this is kind of jumping back a little bit, but remember when I was saying how, like, you know, when I was a kid, I was emotionally disconnected. I came to realize that there was certain times where even myself, I was unintentionally inauthentic by thinking that, you know, that I guess that one thing was my truth and it wasn't. It was actually just my perspective at that time in life. So where I'm going with this is that as I progressed and got older, I didn't have a lot of that emotional connection with my family. So what I'm saying is since I worked on just the exterior, when I was in high school, I was actually bullied a bit as a kid. I had issues with that sort of stuff, like a lot of kids do. But my resolution to that realistically was build myself, get in the gym, work out as hard as I can. Nobody will ever bully me again, right? So, but when I went through doing that, what ended up happening was, here I was 17, my body had transformed. I was like, you know, in pretty good shape. And one of my buddies, he was a couple of years older than me. He said, hey, you know, why don't you put a university shirt on and come down to the club that I work the door at and I'll let you in. And I thought, oh, okay, well, you know, I'm going to high school, but I'll give it a go. It's Friday night. I'll go down there. So I show up and, you know, I'm kind of excited. I've never been in a nightclub before and I'm nervous. And of course I showed up right when the bloody place opened. There's not a soul around, like, you know, stupid.
Hello.
And so, right. So I walk in and I'm standing there talking to the door to my buddy, and the manager comes up and he says, hey, who are you? And I said, I'm Corey. And he said, oh, he goes, you going to school? And well, I didn't lie, but I said, yeah, I am. And he said, oh, you looking for some extra money? And I said, well, who isn't?
Who
And I
isn't?
said, I'm a starving student. What you got going on, right? And he said, well, he goes, take your shirt off. So there was no one around, so I just took my shirt off, and he said, you're hired.
Oh,
Hired for what?
what?
And he's right. And he says, oh, be here on Tuesday and Thursday nights, and you're hired as a topless waiter. So you just walk around, serve drinks to the ladies on ladies' night, shooters and drinks. You take 15% of everything you sell, and you make all your tips, and you only have to work for 2.5 hours. And then when you're finished that, you get up on the stage with the rest of the guys, you do a little choreographed dance routine, and you hand out a bottle of champagne to the loudest table in the house. And I'm like, 17-year-old kid going, wow, like this just fell into my lap. Are you kidding me? Like I'm right in there, right? Like I was like sold, done, right? So then what ended up happening, this is like, I'm telling you, Rick, we could probably spend 3 hours talking about my life story because it's crazy.
Yeah.
But what ended up happening from there is of course there was male dancers that were coming in on that ladies' night. There was 4 of them every ladies' night. They would come in, and here in Canada, we strip full naked, full nude. And so the guys would come in, and then they would chit chat with me at the door, and I'd get to know some of these guys when, whatever, we'd just be talking. And I ended up working the door for a little while, actually being a bouncer on Friday and Saturday nights as well. So here's the irony of that. Here I am checking IDs for people at 18 years old now, and the drinking age is 19, and I'm checking their IDs, and I'm not even of age, right? So like, wow. And then from there, it was like I get to know these male dancers, and I got to know the best in the group in all of Canada. This one guy was my mentor, and he was like the Elvis of stripping in Canada at the time. And here I was, here I was working at the best, basically ladies' night in British Columbia at the time, at the heyday of ladies' night. Now, this is a foregone industry somewhat. I mean, even before COVID, there wasn't really a lot of male dancers still left. But I was lucky to be in there when I was, because it was at the best peak time that you could back in 1987. And so, looking back at that moment, when he said, I can show you, everything that you need to do. And I looked at these guys going and doing that. I said, no, man, there's no way I could do that. Like that just... wow, well, that's one of my biggest fears. So again, we're talking about those fears, right? What's behind your biggest fears usually? Usually it's your greatness. So I ended up actually finally getting convinced to be a dancer. And he said, okay, well, let's put you together a name. What's your favorite movie? And I said, at the time, I said, well, Patrick Swayze, Roadhouse. Love that movie because I'm a bouncer, right? And he goes, oh, okay. He said, what's his name in the movie? And I said, Dalton. Okay, Dalton. And then he says, well, you're a big guy. He said, we got to give you a big last name. So we tried to figure it out. And we came up with Dalton Strong. That was the last name, right? So we got the name. So we're literally, Rick, we're sitting there 10 minutes into the conversation. Now we got the name figured out. And it was like, then a couple weeks later, we had the act figured out. And I went and did Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Terminator, and went out to do this act. And it was just this crazy, like coming through the fog with my laser scope, and all these girls are in the place going crazy. And here I was looking out at the crowd, and I think it was 4 or 5 girls from my high school graduating class were actually right there waiting for the show. And so, yes, I was nervous, but man, the nerves escalated even more, obviously, for that, right? So that was kind of my entry into the business per se. And then it just went from there, It just expanded, and it was like, hit everything. Like,
I know, like you say, we could spend so much time talking about this. I'm really loving this conversation, but given that we have to, I guess, curtail that part of it, when was it that you decided to actually write your book, and why did you write it?
Yeah, good one again. Well, I actually decided to write my book shortly after I retired at the age of 43 from the industry. So I danced from the age of 17 till 43, 25 years in this insane business. That's incredible. Not just in Canada, but across the entire United States as well. So I went as far north as Yellowknife in the Northwest Territories, as far south as Tampa and Florida. So I went all over the place. But all I'm saying is that when it came to writing the book, I wrote the stories years ago. The stories were something that really flowed really naturally, because all I had to do was timeline my crazy stuff that I documented for so many years. That was not the hard part. That's the part that a lot of people are interested in, because they want to know what it was actually like behind the velvet rope. Even though they wouldn't want to do it, they just want to know what it was like. So, right? Like, I think everybody's kind of curious, like, what was that like, But the thing is when I actually finished it and I got all that stuff done, I actually took a look at it and I thought, this isn't enough. Like, this is my really big shot to put out not only an amazing story, but really impact people with it. So the stories were going to make people laugh, cry, whatever it might be. But what I really wanted to do was inject the parts of the personal development part into the book. And so I had to do that personal development myself. I had to walk the walk before I could talk the talk.
Yeah.
So I went deeply into my own introspection, and not just through therapy. I did take a couple therapy sessions because I went through a pretty heavy divorce. But what I actually learned through this process, and I work with this amazing company called Daring to Share Global in Ontario, Canada, that actually helped me to really design my book to be able to not only write authentically, but to actually figure out my authenticity based on my values, and more importantly, the feelings that are attached to my values. So when I was able to do that, I could actually go back into each chapter of my book and go, okay, in this chapter, I had the value of truth, for example, and the struggle that I had with that value was perspective. So I actually had that at the top of the chapter. Then you see the chapter title, you read the chapter, and at the end of the chapter, I actually say what I call the naked truth. This is all part of my branding, of course, but the naked truth is actually my accountable, really straight up, like, responsible, undrug hazed reality of what happened at that time in my life, and pinpointing where my struggles were based off of that core value being degraded. So I literally pinpoint it and say, and this is jokingly, I say this even to some people, and I don't want to sound creepy here, but I'm showing you mine, show me yours.
Show me yours.
Right? Like, I'm going to write this book. I'm going to show you what I have, every skeleton, everything that I've ever been vulnerable about. I'm going to go ahead and throw it at you and even pinpoint it. And then from there, if you're somebody that's willing, and you have to be willing because that's like anything, but wanting to address your own authenticity to become a better writer, maybe a better professional, maybe a better just human being all the way around, then by me opening up and showing you that, it allows you to go, well, you know what, maybe I can open up to show him a little bit about me too, instead of just going to a therapist's office and having them hold up a picture and ask you what this picture reminds you of. I'm actually kind of going in there in a different angle. So we all know that there's a lot of speakers and there's a lot of people in the self-help department that regurgitate the same stuff. It's just over and over, right? We've all heard the same stuff, right? All I was wanting to do, Rick, was come in from a different angle, make it a lot more interesting, a lot more fun for my students, and also not just that, but really dig down through the authenticity realm and going deeper than just being authentic and saying you need to know your core values, but address those feelings, because those are really, really important when it comes to things triggering you in the first place. If you can't pinpoint those feelings and understand what is triggering you, then how can you actually really figure out if it's the person in front of you or if it's something that happened in your past that's causing you to be triggered? You can't.
No, you
right?
can't.
So,
no.
So that's where I'm finding that I'm getting far better, more authentic, real relationships where I actually, and through my authenticity, I lost some people, but I really gained some people that give me that type of feeling where my vibration's higher. I'm walking out of that room feeling like I learned something. And I don't know about you, but, and I'm not saying this from ego in any way, but I've been in a couple rooms where I was the smartest person in the room and it's not getting me anywhere.
No,
it's just not getting me anywhere. So I really wanted to learn from others, but I had to learn about myself first before I could learn about others. And so understanding that I was only seeing life through my lens, I wasn't really accepting of getting feedback from other people to see things through their lens, right? So by doing that, it makes me more real. It makes me more authentic. So now you know who you're talking to today and tomorrow, not me trying to sell something that I'm not.
Yeah,
right. So I hope that makes sense.
You've certainly grown in leaps and bounds. At one stage, you were all external. Here, look at me. This is what I look like. My ego is running the show, to somebody who's introspective, who has grown, I guess, psychologically. You've now been able to position yourself as somebody who's, I guess, empowered to help others. Do you find that your students have that sort of reaction when they start to, look at themselves on a deeper level?
Yes. Depending on the student. But where I'm going with that is that I don't have it all figured out, right? Like I don't, because this is not perfection. This is progression. So to me, every day is still a practice for me, and it will be for the rest of my life,
Yeah,
right? Like,
yeah,
because you're not going to wake up the same every day, and there's going to be times where, you know, you have struggles. There's going to be something that's going to trigger you, whatever it means, and then or it happens, and then all of a sudden you're straying from your authenticity. I'm not immune to that. I'm not the superhero that my dad was.
yeah,
Just kidding. I'm not that, right?
yeah, yeah,
Nobody
yeah.
is. Nobody is. So I don't look at it like, I just go, yeah, I'm imperfectly perfect, and I laugh about my imperfections now, right? Like when I used to, for example, when I used to struggle with the thought of lack and not having enough money, now I
Hmm.
just kind of laugh at it and go, oh my God, the audacity of me even thinking that in the first place for a guy that was having money shoved down his G-string for like 25 years of his life. How could you have even thought that, right? So I kind of joke about it in my own mind,
Yeah.
and make it kind of just not so serious, because I find that I got times when I fell into that trap of self-doubt, unworthiness, lack. It was kind of like I wasn't being myself, and I would actually, it almost paralyzed me from making an impact on others in my life, and really just progressing in my own, right? So I
Yeah.
don't want to be in that role anymore. Like, I just really don't. And I struggled so hard with divorce and the pain of going through that. So I guess for my give back, where more so than anything else, really is really for the guys out there in particular that struggle with those things, because I really couldn't really figure out the true definition of man enough a lot of the time. And I kind of thought, well, you know, men don't cry. Men are the hunter gatherers. They go out there and,
Uh,
you know, they can't fail, you know, and all
hmm.
that. And then you put all this pressure on yourself, and then it bottles up, bottles up, bottles up. And then all of a sudden you blurt out something that's completely inauthentic. And that happened to me a few times. And who does that remind me of? My father, my grandfather who
Hmm.
raised me, a
Hmm.
really good man with all the best intent in the world, but we can all be bad apples of good intent at times. And he was one of them. And so have I. I've been that myself. Right.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I just want to talk to that guy that's 30 years old, that guy that I was, you know, before I took that step,
Hmm.
and maybe help that person to not go on the long Forrest Gump walk and go through the pain that I went through. I'd rather actually have them learn the lesson a little bit easier. It's nothing's ever going to be easy, but at the very least, kind of put a person into the more rational mindset instead
Hmm.
of the emotionally overdone mindset. And that's where it really comes down to me, the synchronization of authenticity with emotional intelligence, and how bloody important that really, really, truly is. Because
Yeah.
when you start straying and you're going too high on your emotions, that's when you're really kind of going into that inauthentic zone. And well, that's why we don't make decisions when we're emotionally distraught, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, with that being the case, Corey, what a fantastic conversation this has been. I know that there will be people on this call who want to make a connection with you and learn more, get your book, and all the rest of the great stuff that you're
Yeah.
doing. I'm wondering if you could share where they're going to find you and how they can get their hands on this book.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll make it easy for your audience to actually have two website names that go to the same place, but I would say CoreyLaineHilton.com, but it's Laine, so most people will make a mistake. So
Uh huh.
just go to takeitoff.ca, and
Hmm.
that'll get you to the exact same place anyway.
Yep.
And that where through that website, you can actually chat with me directly through the chat, and it is actually me, believe it or not. It's right to my cell phone,
Imagine that.
right? And yeah, right in this world. But on top of that, you know, my book can be purchased right now on Amazon, Barnes and Noble in the US. It can be purchased throughout Canada, chapters in Indigo. But yeah, right now I just simply have the book on there. But within the next 2 weeks, I'm not sure when this is airing, but within the next 2 weeks,
Hmm.
I'm going to actually be having my video courses on there and my one-on-one training options on there. And this is the
Fantastic.
cool, and here's the really cool angle with this. It's a lot different than most people have done. I am taking my biography and I'm packaging it together with the courses, and it actually, you cross-reference with my biography with the courses that I provide with the
Ah,
worksheets.
yeah.
So it's kind of a neat thing to do, because as I said again, I'm showing you mine. So actually, when I talk to my students, I'm like, go into chapter 1, have a look at my struggle between this and this, and absorb that and see how that actually pulled me away from my authenticity,
Uh
and
huh.
relate to what I'm talking about. Give me your story, right? So that kind of makes it a little more, I guess you can say, than just being going through a self-help course or
Yeah,
whatever, right? So
absolutely. Yeah, no,
yeah,
well,
it
look,
adds a
you're
lot.
It's a guided experience that you have a vested interest in. You've lived it. You can't buy experience. And anybody's on the call today, if you've seen this call and you think there's something in it for you, life is not a dress rehearsal. You only get one shot at this. So reach out to Corey. I'll be providing all of the links below this post. No matter where you see, you'll be definitely able to get back to Corey and his wonderful book. And with that, in closing, Corey, thank you so very much for joining me on the show today.
Absolute pleasure, my friend. Thank you for having me on.
Thanks for joining us today. If you enjoyed the call, then make sure to subscribe, leave a comment, share us with your friends, and book your spot on the show at myfuturebusiness.com/interviews. And if you're looking for solutions that will help grow your business, then visit myfuturebusiness.com/shop.